Hello, Numeratus community. I'm here today with Daniel. He is in charge of the Project 1000 within the futureforecastinggroup.com. Daniel, how you doing?
I'm doing well, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's
Good.
Thursday. It's a beautiful day out.
Things are greening up where you are, right?
Yes, yeah, spring after Easter, and then next thing you know, it was like the humidity, started to creep in, and there's no more snow, and it's just like a light switch went off. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Every year, same thing. Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm really excited about this because I've got some interesting crypto investing questions, and I just wanted to run them past you.
Sure.
And so the first one is, let's say I have two Bitcoin, and I trade one of those I buy them January the 1st of this year. And the capital gains tax on crypto is 1 year. So the capital gains, if I sell it short term inside of that 1 year, 37% tax. If I
Interesting.
wait to January the 1st of the next year, what does it drop my tax rate down to?
Potentially, it could be 10 to 18%.
10, 18%. Okay. So it behooves me to play a lot longer game when it comes to trading and maximizing, as long as the market can bear that, right? So
Correct.
my question is, let's say I have let's say I have 10 Bitcoin. That's a rich guy. So I've got 10 Bitcoin and I started my company January the 1st, and I traded half of it. I traded 5 Bitcoin in March. Okay. And so I have 5 Bitcoin in reserve that didn't get touched, that's hodled, that's originally part of the company. And then I
Yes.
have the other five it's essentially has restarted a clock on my short-term capital gain. I've left that on an exchange to trade, but I'm aware of the capital gain. But I know that I have a buffer of 5 Bitcoin in my cold storage wallet. Is it viewed by the tax authority that I need to trade the stuff that's on my exchange wallet in order to, subvert, not pay the high capital gain, as long as I go past the 1 year? Like, say I come back around and I've reached 1 year on the original allotment of my portfolio. Is it viewed as a or is there a separation between the two, or is it just is it viewed as being one stock? Is it my entire portfolio is viewed by the tax man, or is it essentially what's viewed by me on the exchange that's actually getting traded? Do you see what I mean?
So it's the whole portfolio with all the different cryptos that you have in it. But then when you're looking at it by a specific crypto, like the Bitcoin that you were just mentioning, then it comes down to how long have you been holding this balance and the inflows and outflows. So you, like you said, the beginning of the year you had them, then at a certain period of time you basically broke the pooling up and have one on a wallet and the other one on an exchange. And then, yes, it sounds like since you have it on exchange, you might as well sell that. So depending on that your time, it doesn't matter where the cryptos are sitting. Let it be, in a brokerage account, let it be in a cold or hot wallet or on an exchange. It's all going to be pooled together. And then depending on that time you bought in and got out in that year's time will be where you're being taxed. And then right now you're saying if it's less than a year, so then that's your short-term gain because you got out within 12 months, outside of 12 months. So then they're going to bring you down to that 10 to 18%. So yes, it does behoove us to keep it in there from a tax perspective. So they want us to basically hold on to it. We're not, it's like cryptos are almost being set up that it's not from a tax perspective, it's not beneficial to be day trading when you're looking at some of these items. But there are strategies out there where you can say, I want to take a portion of that portfolio and take my profits, but then a portion stays back. So you're almost like hedging your tax liability in the future. Especially if you're charting this correctly, you could definitely come back in at a cheaper price. Let's just use Bitcoin as an example, and then have that grow over time. So it's almost like you're even if you are selling within a year, as long as you're leaving some behind to cover your tail from a tax perspective, then maybe it is lucrative to basically cash out on a short-term gain.
And then, so that's where also you could play in the wash sale as well. If people don't know what that is, right? That's still you can still do that with crypto, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So if people don't know what a wash sale is, you essentially, if you entered in, if Bitcoin's $100,000 and you bought it at 100,000 and it dropped to 50,000, you could sell it, buy it right back, and then you could claim the loss. But this is only inside of a company, right? You can't wash it if it's in your private, if it's in your own private wallet, correct?
Correct. But you have to net that against any gain. So it's not like an accumulation of your losses and just saying, like I always view it as a prime example is like gambling winnings. Just because I lost on 10 tickets that didn't win me anything doesn't mean that I can go and claim that. I can only claim that against my gains.
Winnings, right? So,
Yes.
for example, if you have a bad year, and you could essentially wash the tokens, buy them right back. But then again, it's like this game where okay, you buy it back in at 50,000, and then from 50, you're making gains after 50 because now
Mhm.
it's reset the counter. Yeah, it's when you start doing it, it's like you're it's like you're chasing the wind, you know what I mean? You get into this all these different strategies and you find uh that you can't stop. It seems like that again, you're just playing it. You're not trading your whole bag. You've got a portion of it that you're using inside of the trading environment. That's kind of the way that I do it. Is like I don't liquidate everything. I just keep it in specific like quadrants. And then
Yeah.
whenever specific, yeah, and you have to be very disciplined to do that. And I think when people say cash out, that doesn't necessarily mean they liquidate their entire portfolio. And I think that
Yes.
that's something that doesn't really get talked about, that there still needs to be a strategy on exiting relative to taxation that people are not talking about. So, is there any tax benefit by having inside of a corporation other than writing off things and having normal corporate costs, inside of a business, opposed to having it in your private name? Right? You can obviously deduct loss, obviously, as long as you sell it and rebuy it back inside of a company. Private, you can't do that. Is there a tax? Is there a percentage difference between short-term capital gains and long-term capital gains in beside from corporate to personal? Or are they the same?
Well, you get the added benefit of if you're taking money out, so you're cashing out. If you're cashing out, but it's already in your corporate structure. I mean, depending on if you're using that as an investment to go buy a piece of equipment or something for your business, you get that benefit of turning that right into a taxable expense. When you're doing that outside, you know, just because you took it out of the crypto market and then I just bought myself, a bag of potato chips, that doesn't matter to me. That's a consumable. But when it's inside the business, it becomes a business expense. So you could play this any which way you want. But I would 100% agree with you, the discipline behind it. And one scenario might work this year, it might not necessarily work the next year, especially with the changes in the market and then the changes in the projects which are tethered to these coins. So in my opinion, I think that you have more options on the table when you structure everything within a business. Because not only are you, like the example I just used with taking your your profit and then maybe turning that around and buying another asset on your business, but it helps truly diversify your treasury on your balance sheet. For so long people have been saying, "Oh, diversify this." You want to get a different stock in this area of the market or a different stock. True diversification is different asset classes, and I'm sure you're well versed on this. It's just that's true diversification. So if one asset class goes down, you're still, in a very good position to hedge the risk.
Yeah, so like in a company, yeah, if I have $1 million worth of Bitcoin and I take a capital gain on it, and I sell half of it, and I make $500,000 and I move it to USD, and I then take that same in the same calendar year, and then I take that same half million and I buy a property, a house, gold, silver, and then reinvest it, that's the expense. So they're all we're talking about is an asset transfer. So taxation wise, what would my taxation be after something like that, after that transaction? $500,000 in Bitcoin, cash, house, all in the company.
Well, that's where it depends. So it depends, and we could, of course, go into that conversation in a more private setting, but that's where it depends because it all depends on the market for not only real estate, but then where you are standing there at that point in time with the cryptos. But it's not impossible. It's certainly possible.
Right. So like asset transfer. So there, I think this is something that is viewed because crypto and not all of it is considered or all of it's considered property or part of it.
In the all cryptos in the eyes of the IRS and the UCC is deemed property, though it's software.
Yeah. So like I know this if I make but if I make in my company $500,000 and then I buy a piece of equipment that's $500,000, it's a wash.
Correct.
Right. But in crypto there's a little there's a
You start to
caveat.
get into, yeah, you're starting to get into every single token and coin, and then from a consolidated perspective, where do you stand at that point in time at the end of the year?
Right.
Then, of course, you're hedging that liability or benefit, depends, could be benefit, against, what other asset you bought at that point in time, especially if it's tied to real estate and you're mortgaging it.
Right. So what if you take Bitcoin, you sell it for cash, no March, and then market turns, or you get into Ethereum, and market turns, and it is if there's a how can I put this in perspective? Like I pull out $500,000 of Bitcoin, and then the market drops. I buy $500,000 worth of Ethereum, on the downslope, and then ride Ethereum up, and now my $500,000 is turned into 1 million, but it's on the books as 1 million. I haven't cashed it. So in that case, but the taxation would still be zero at that point, right? Because I'm not moving it out of the jurisdiction of the crypto space and it's not in cash, as long as it stays in the crypto coins.
In theory, yes.
Yes.
All things remaining the same.
Right. And then but what about a stable coin? Is that in the same ballpark as that, or is that viewed and deemed as like if I moved it to USDC instead of USD, is that considered property, or is that considered a because they can't take payment in that? Because that was always the way it was explained to me, was that if the IRS and the government doesn't view it as legal tender, then they can't ask you for the taxation out of it, even though there might be a gain in it.
Yeah, it's like a holding coin, if you will.
Right.
Like they're used for Tether and USDC. So, just because it's being held there and you convert it out of it, it's basically just like a holding entity, if you will, a holding coin until you bring it out of digital and you bring it into uh into fiat.
Yeah. So I think the way to describe this for subscribers is that it's kind of like, think about like boats, like ships going into a port, right? And the ocean, which is ruled under maritime law, it's ruled, that's the crypto space. We're dealing with international law, international rules, and whenever you decide to take the crypto off the boat and exchange it for fiat currency so that you can buy silks and spices and whatever else in the port, then that's when the taxation happens,
Yes.
generally
Yes.
speaking. Yeah.
It's when you're moving something at a point in time, regardless of it having the same quantity, but the valuation has changed, and then you're getting some other benefit out of it. So it's going to be a taxable event.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's good to have these clarifications. It's funny because it's the same. I look at the language that's behind it, and I'm like, it's like a house. Think of Bitcoin or any of these cryptos as like buying a house or any other hard asset that you would buy, even though we can't wrap our hands around it. Um, so if I sell something, if I buy, let's say, a vintage automobile, and it's $100,000 car, and I sell it a year later, and it's worth $150,000 at auction, I've gained $50,000. If it's inside the company, I could take the $150,000 and reinvest it into a a larger asset, as long as you have the transactions during the calendar year to offset the expenses. And that's the
100%.
beauty of owning a business.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes. Otherwise, it's all consumable
that's right.
in the personal realm.
Right.
And so it's getting that structure around that, and then you can really start to hone on
Which
growing
I
your
think
assets.
in all the years I've been in business for myself for like 30 years now, since 19. And the accountants that I've had one for about 20 years. And now you're handling my crypto business. Um, they never ever recommended moving capital assets, cash of into gold and silver. They never recommended it. And what they would do is they'd recommend and say, look, well, you need to buy something. You should buy a new truck. You should buy another piece of equipment. And that was like a typical phone call that not just I would make, but it was like the language that would be used in the contractor space. Oh, did you call your accountant? As it would get near to the end of the year, my accountant said that I have to burn up $40,000 and I'm just going to go buy a new truck, something like that.
Yeah.
And like, well, why didn't they recommend just to go buy gold and silver, right? Why didn't and again, it's like that there's a line between accounting of what I think is normal and the way that you can do it to use it in your benefit. Because if we don't understand as business owners the investment side of owning a business and having these different hedges and different assets that can be inside the portfolio, inside the business, if you don't know of it, you would never know to do it. And like I said, the consensus would be, just go buy another piece of equipment or something. I'm like, that's crazy. Always be like, well, that means I have to go do more work. Maybe I don't want to do more work. The accountant's just telling me to go spend more money, right? And in hindsight and looking back, I'm like, gosh, why did I just do that? I would have been way further ahead. So it's simple things like that, and people will be like, of course that's what you would do. But if you'd never had it recommended to you that you could do that, for example, if you bought Bitcoin and it runs up, then one of the hedges could be moving it into gold and silver. So you could call somebody like our affiliate at Miles Franklin, Andy Scheckman, and they can take payment from crypto just to buy gold and silver. So you have a lot more versatility with this asset class than housing, equipment, things like that, because the market is a 24-hour a day, 365-day market, and that you can liquidate very easily and move these assets very, very quickly. So there's a lot of advantages to it. So
Yeah.
excited,
I mean,
very
you're
excited.
once again diversifying your asset classes, but I could speak for the maybe the accounting mindset is that they are looking at your books, what, let's just say, Q4 calendar year, and they're saying, oh, you're gonna owe. So maybe, once again, maybe it's a good idea to buy that piece of equipment or what have you, to buy more inventory. But is that the right thing to do? I mean, especially if they're looking at it from a working capital perspective, well, hey, why don't invest on yourself and basically, hedge, especially if you're taking withdrawals from your crypto reserves, then there's no problem with going into to precious metals, especially if you have it detailed in your operating agreement. So then your corporation is no different than a actual vessel, a ship, and your treasury is your bounty, your treasure chest, if you will. So, do you just want to have paper assets in there? I think not.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of the tricks that I used to do when it come fourth quarter is I would try to get to the end of the year with no money in my bank account. So I had these national home builders that would still pay. This was, you know, not that long ago, like say in the past 10 years, and they were still sending me checks. Everybody was automatically, auto paid like through, just digital, debit to the bank, and I was purposely taking checks. And the reason was because the checks, you could cash the checks out in 90 days. So I would hold checks and not cash them and just put them in my safe. And then come year end of the next year, January the 1st, I'd go to the bank and deposit, and my account's like, because it would be typical that I would be the jobs that I would be doing would be large, $10,000, $15,000, things like that. So those would be the checks that I would get. And never did they ever come back on me and say like, well, the date was issued on this. Why didn't you deposit it on this date? So I was like, playing this little game where I would just hold all my checks, and wait till the next year and then deposit them and then get away from having to pay the tax on the gain, for that year.
Yeah, doing that, there's bells are ringing,
Yeah.
especially from a the public domain perspective, because you have your matching principle there with revenue and expenses. But if you're private and you're working for yourself,
Yeah. Yeah. My accountant would say like, she's like, this is a potential red flag. You got to be careful with this. I'm like, yeah, I hear you. I forgot. 70,000? You forgot $70,000? Yeah, it's fine. So yeah, it's funny that you those types of little tricks have all evaporated,
Mm,
into the
yeah,
existence, this new digital world that you can't do those things anymore. So I
yeah,
can't even honestly say the last time I actually received a check in the mail for something. It's like, and that one of the businesses I have now that somebody wanted to pay me in a check, and I'm like, we don't take them. Because out of as many people as we have, and the level of business is a lot smaller. It's not like it's a $50,000 check. Um, yeah, we just don't take them. Just don't take them. It's just not worth it.
yeah.
So it's easier on accounting because 99.9% of the rest of my client base is all digital. So I don't have any reason to be doing it anymore. So yeah, it's interesting. Times are changing. Have to
They
be on
indeed
it.
are. So Dan, let me just turn the table for a second. What are you doing at Project 1000? What's your goal with your project and the journey that you're on with your audience?
Well, originally it started off as, you know, kind of chronicling a thousand millionaires. So the original genesis of Future Forecasting Group created about 200 millionaires out of around 2021, in that range, of subscribers that were in our group. And we kind of looked at it and said like, hey, with this, we're in this low, we're in a lull in the market, and what if we set a goal for 1,000 millionaires? I was like, okay, we can do that. Like, what do we need to do that? So when I came into it, I was looking at things that I ran into, problems that I had. So when I came into crypto was 2020, like right around COVID, and I had a trading background that goes back probably 20 years. So I've privately traded options and equities, and so I know the language. I know how it works. Have made money at it. Don't do it as a primary because I don't like to lose and I don't like to gamble. Um, but when the crypto took off, it rips your face off. It happens so fast, and the euphoria that pours over your body is, unless you've experienced it, you can't prepare yourself for it. And I looked at it and thought during that period, in hindsight, what could I do for subscribers to get the point across that you need to do these things and you need to be well disciplined whenever the market moves, because when it does, you have to be prepared and be like what we're talking about, setting up and moving money and placing it in environments where the taxation isn't high, and or it's you've got a good handle on it. Are you leveraged? Do you have home loans, cars? Is it inside of a company? Where are these things titled? Who the ownership? And if you have to quickly move money, do you have the necessary channels open to be able to do it? have you been in a situation where you've been on Coinbase, and I've seen this, oh gosh, probably half a dozen times, where they would shut the site down. So when the market starts running, they run out of coins, which means low liquidity, and it doesn't work. So you can't move anything off or on. And your trades are you're sunk. So it doesn't matter that it went up. On paper, yeah, you made all this money, but you couldn't act on it. So brokerages are really important. They are behind the scenes. It's not just an open service for everyone else. So yeah, if you're dealing with a large sum of money, and that's the problem with crypto. When I started off, I wasn't thinking of any of that. I figured like, well, if I sign up, with a Coinbase or a Kraken, and here's the contract, and you do your KYC and everything else, that they're going to follow through, that it's going to be there, just like Interactive Brokers or anybody else. It doesn't work that way. That there's once you kind of get into understanding the language of how this market is working, then that's where the Project 1000 came in. It's like we're identifying these issues and saying, hey, this is already baked into the cake, guys. So don't get caught behind the eight ball and think, oh, well, it's easy for me just to go ahead and plunk in a couple $1,000s or 10,000, whatever it is that you're putting in on a monthly basis into Coinbase. And when the time comes, I'll just cash out everything. It'll be easy. And it's not. They're not making it easy. So people have already run into issues with banks and moving money through banks to some of these outfits, and the brokerages we haven't had an issue with that. So whether it's Caleb Brown or Jeff Zylstra at Uptrade, that they can just do it. You're going to pay a higher fee, but the job is going to get done. So I view it like as business, in general. Like if I have to get something done, I'm going to pay, right? If I need to get a service done, I'm going to pay for it. Would I rather pay, a half a point on a trade on paper and not have it done, or pay 3.5% and have it done? And that's something that the subscribers can listen to, and just they have to make that choice. But that's what happens. They just that there's no availability. So there's concerns about that. Are you going to just go out, cash out, and go buy a Lambo? Is that a good idea? So these are some of the things that we talk about. I talk about on the site that there's risk. Like you go buy a car like that, and like, are you prepared to pay $1,500 on an oil change? Or you go buy a Mercedes Benz, just go buy a Mercedes and pay $400 or $500 for an oil change. Are you prepared for that? Are you prepared to pay the higher insurances, because now you went from a $20,000 Corolla and you bought your dream car, which is a convertible E-Class, whatever, and now you're paying 3 times the insurance, or 4, whatever it is. And are you ready for that? So it's like that new world of being like outside of the normal space and going into being like getting into being wealthy, where you can actually start thinking about doing something with your money. That there's a number of things that open up that you think that you might want to have, but there's consequences to them and expenses. And so it's things like that we I talk about, that I think they're important, because as fast as you make it, it's not normal for you to make as much money that can be made in crypto. That's not a normal space. So then by taking that and saying, if it's not normal, then should I be doing what everybody else does with the money after I've made it, right? Take a yoga breath and then just figure out how the system works before you get whacked on the head and lose it all. My concern is that we're going to make these people are all going to come flooding in. They're going to become wealthy, and they're going to, lose their minds. I said, because I can remember the comments of being, of having a support staff essentially in FFG, and everybody was going through the same thing, just shock. Like every day you look at your portfolio, it's like, oh, it's up 50,000, it's up 100,000. It's just like, it's crazy. So that it plays with your mind. And when you're in an environment like in the private site that we have, it enables you to have anonymity away from the population, with others that are of like mind and like situation. But you can still be behind you don't have to put your name up. It's like an avatar. You can be behind the scenes, but but express your opinions and know that it's behind a space that is protected inside the paywall. And it's an information trading environment. So we would gain, like during the COVID period, we were gaining a lot of like support by everyone that was inside of the space to get everyone through it, to keep our minds clear. And so COVID is a good example of that, but money in general is just so demonic. And if you've not had a lot of it, and all of a sudden you do, it changes your mindset, right? Or if you're a business owner and you scratched and clawed your whole life, like I did for like 25 years, and all of a sudden had this chunk thrown on me, I'm like, this is crazy. Like I've been killing myself for all these years, and now I have all of this. Like, what do I do with it? I don't really. What do people do when they get to that point in their life, right? And then you start looking at all these different avenues of trusts and self-directed IRAs and maybe offshore accounts and things like that. Maybe taking loans against life insurance policies. There's all kinds of little tricks and things that we're going to get into later talking about that I had no reason for having that inside of my mind space before, but now it's like, well, I might as well just do it. I might as well do it. Why would I pay taxes if I can, structure it correctly and not pay it? I'd rather not. If I can, just, take the time, get the education and position myself, then it makes it it's more fun and creative with it. You can do something with it, right? Invest in another company, invest in somebody that you trust or know, right? That maybe is struggling with money. And now that you know how to manage it, you can be the one that, pulls people through it, because as markets go up, other markets go down. It's not like it's going to come from somewhere. So you get rich and wealthy in crypto, you're taking it out of somebody else's pocket. So if you've been given this gift, that's my impression of it. Like, you should be looking at avenues on how to get it back into the system, because we could be sitting here and create 1,000 millionaires, and if nobody's spending their money or they're spending it on a bunch of junk, then I don't want it to be Mad Max land out there. I'd like to have, put the money back into the system and flourish it and grow it. Don't just sit on it. And, you're going to get tired of sitting on the beach and drinking Mai Tais. It gets old. So have something that you can be passionate about when you have that first big push of capital that comes into you, and you have control of it. Then that's when people start doing the things that they really like. They start spending more time with their families, and they start spending the capital towards a directive that they want. They want to quit their 9 to 5, so on. There's so many different options that happen. Yeah. So you become really empowered, and then you'll find that I worked 40 hours a week before, but now I own my own business. I don't ever stop working. But you're happy to do it, right? You're just excited every day that you get up. You're excited to go do it. So I think that's what it's all about. It's so that in a nutshell, that's P1000. It's growing and developing as we continue on in it, because it's so dynamic. Just like whenever you came online, I was like, oh my God, thank you. I talked to so many accountants, and nobody was really taking it seriously. I think that was the case. Like, nobody was really putting the effort into digging into it and finding out all the nuances that are in the digital space, because it's so new, and many of their clients weren't in it, or if they were, they just weren't telling the accountants they had it. So yeah, so it's
taboo. It's still a taboo subject. Everyone's like, oh, it's just going to go down. You got what is it? Peter out there. What's his last name? It leaves me now, but he's out there and he's poo-pooing Bitcoin, but it's just like what's the alternative? Just precious
Schiff?
metal? Peter
Schiff?
Schiff. Peter
Yeah,
Schiff, yes. And it's just like, to me, it's like he's just cheerleading away from it, but it's just like, it's an opportunity. You need to do your due diligence. You need to do your research into what these coins can do and what it's building, what the future looks like, and get some perspective. And you hit on it with, let's just say there's an individual who is working those 40 hours a week. They're an employee, but they've been actively investing and doing their research into cryptocurrencies. Next thing you know, they're a multimillionaire overnight. And now what?
Right.
Well, don't they have a dream? Don't they ever think of not going to that 9 to 5 anymore? Don't they have an initiative or some sort of drive to maybe create their own business and to no longer be an employee, to be an entrepreneur? I know we've been hammering this home about the entrepreneurial mindset. It's completely not the way that we were raised or in this society or when we went to school. We're basically we were there for workforce management, go to work, get a job, and buy buy a house, get married, and then retire, and then that's that. So breaking out of that shell, what is there? And I think that utilizing this conveyor of cryptocurrency to take you to the other side, to a place where we could only dream of, then we need to have that discipline. We need to have that perspective, and then it's like, whoa! Now I'm no longer a creature here. I'm actually co-creating as well, and I think that that's where you get the keys to unlock certain areas in your lifestyle that you would have never been able to even open or even learn about because you never had the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I've talked to a lot of people that have been in very similar situations. Anybody that's in crypto, and if they've been in it for, the past, 5 years, you have had same stories, same situations, and many mistakes were made. Many taxation mistakes were made. Just shock, just everyone. I have not come across somebody that just killed it, that understood what was going on in the market, that was calling all, like trading on all the highs and cleaning house. I haven't heard it yet. That there's most were just, like I said, just shocked. And we of this group, we're way ahead of everybody else. Like, I've really, and seeing all the material that's inside the site, and starting to see it actually happening right now as we speak. So it's really empowering. So now it's like, yeah, my personal is like doubling down of what I'm going to be doing and making sure I have all these channels open first. I was like, I need to get my shit together. I was like, because if I'm doing this project, I think I need to make sure that I have all this stuff in place, because if I'm out talking about this, I need to make sure that I'm one of the guys that's actually doing it. So it's been fun to, it's been driving me. You know what I mean? It's like I was driven before, but now I'm more driven because I want to know about, I want more. I want to know more of this hyper novel environment. And that's essentially my initiative directive, is I want to have the subscribers boots on the ground. Once they know the language of how this all works, that they're going to start seeing things come across their desk that are, opportunities for others, that it might not be something that you want to get into personally, right? But it might be something, if you put it out there, like, hey, there's an opportunity over here. So it creates a really robust networking environment for everybody that's in here. It's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Dan, uh, everyone here at Numeranas can find you at Project 1000 within the Future Forecasting Group. So that's futureforecastinggroup.com. Do you have anything else you want to say before we wrap up here?
Probably so, but I think we've I've probably talked your ear off. There'll be more to come. I think it's good to take time to digest it, and I think we're moving into, and it's good to, to start this dialogue. So we'll have more for the subscribers moving forward for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan. I appreciate the time.
Thanks, John.
Bye, everybody.